University of the Arts on Broad Street. It's a very special Promoter 101, featuring an interview with Live Nation's Jeff Gordon. Baby, you in the best city on earth, home of the cheesesteak, Rocky Balboa, Liberty, and the world champions. Steiny, I hope you're ready, because the fine brothers and sisters of Philadelphia are ready for you. Fly, Eagles, fly, on the road to victory. Fight, Eagles, fight. Score a touchdown, 1, 2, 3. Promoter 101. From Promoter 101. From Promoter 101. From Promoter 101 on the road to victory, baby.
Hi, my name's Ed Bicknell, and I'm Promoter 101, and I'm in room 24 something, and I've got an inside leg measurement of 32 inches and a cup size of 31A.
Good evening, Philadelphia, and welcome to Promoter 101 live from the University of the Arts. We're in the middle of a crazy polar vortex, something outside, Dan, but despite the 15-degree temperatures, we're joined by a very lovely and warm crowd here in Philadelphia. Promoter 101 live from the Kaplan Recital Hall at the University of the Arts. I'm Luke Pierce. My partner in crime sitting next to me tonight, Mr. Dan Steinberg from Emporium Presents. How you doing, Dan?
Hello, Philly. You guys are looking good. Thank you so much for coming out and braving the cold.
Yeah.
We are going to have a good time tonight.
Later on this podcast, we're going to have a lot of great stories shared, a lot of great lessons, hopefully, to be learned. A bunch of good war stories around the corner tonight. We're going to be joined later with a live war story from FATA Bookings' Alexiou-Reo later on this podcast. Also, we're going to have Point Entertainments Jesse Lundy stepping up to give us a State of the Union on what's going on here in the live market in Philadelphia.
And in our feature interview, the president of Live Nation Philadelphia, Mr. Jeff Gordon, is here as well. So we got that coming up. So this is going to be a good
Jeff
time.
Gordon, you know?
Let's just get right into it.
Hi, it's Kim Badir with City of Tacoma Venues and Events, appearing on Promoter 101. Glad to represent all Canadians everywhere, particularly those who have landed in the U.S. of A.
If you've missed any of the past Promoter 101 episodes, you can find them all online at promoter101.com. This week we have a great reissue. It's episode 76. Can you tell them about that very special episode, Luke?
You know, we had a lot of great interviews on this podcast, and episode 76 was no different. We had Red Light's Mary Hillard Harrington, that's a manager out of Nashville. She talked about her early days working for Donald Trump, explains why she left the publicity side of the biz, and her current gig managing Dierks Bentley.
Also, WME UK's Alex Booley is going to talk to us about the digital market.
And I have no idea why we had this guy in the podcast, but he was a great interview. From Survivor reality star Johnny Fairplay joined us, dropping in with some pretty good war stories.
He's a self-marketing genius, and this is the music business. We have to know how to market. The guy got himself on a CBS show, and everyone knows his name, and he didn't go up and doing security like the rest of those idiots that are on those reality shows.
That's true. It was actually a really great interview. We also had your business partner and from Live Nation Dubai, Zed McBool, sat down from London, too. Great interview.
They were talking about Jason's first bar mitzvah. He's not Jewish, and he didn't know how that happened, and he walked into his own bar mitzvah at Sammy's Romania in New York. So that was a fun story.
It is a fun story. They had invitations made for that in advance of that, by the way, too. So that was a great surprise for Jason.
So if you get a chance, subscribe to the podcast, send us a review, email us, let us know what you're thinking. As long as we're properly guilt tripping you, we really, really, really need your reviews.
You're really painting on the Jewish guilt tonight, which I really appreciate.
This is Jason Flom, chairman and CEO and founder of Lava Records on Promoter 101.
Why don't we start the podcast here with a live war story here. This is the part of the podcast where we invite somebody from the industry to come up and tell one of those harrowed stories about breaking it here in the biz. So tonight we're going to ask FATA Bookings' Alexiou-Reo to join us down here. Come on down. Welcome. Thanks for coming down.
Thanks for having me.
So many people don't know this, but there's a bunch of industry that's right here, not just the concert stuff, but Tim Bohr is here, Eva's here, there's some managers here. This is a real industry town.
It's true.
So representing the booking agent side of things.
Yeah, it's a great.
Give us a war story.
Yeah, so I think it was hard to pick which one to go with, to be honest, because
You can go with a couple.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I can. I don't think I have time for a couple. They're very
You had a
long.
border jumping story, right? Where
I
Brandon
do.
Melissa-
I have a great crossing illegally through borders story. We have a client in the UK who was advised to not come over without the visas being delivered, which were properly approved, but delayed, which happens with visas because we're obviously dealing with government offices. But
Is this recent, by the way?
This is recent enough, yeah. And it has a trickle effect as well.
So the artist listened to you, and that's the end of the story?
Yes, of course, because all artists listen to everyone who works for them. So in the UK, you can hold 2 passports, and even they felt that, you know, they would leave the one behind and his twin brother would show up and pick it up. See where I'm going with this one? And instead of flying with the rest of the band, he decided to fly solo so he can actually not get flagged at immigration and customs as a band. Because when you're coming through as a band, they do research to make sure that you have the paperwork. So he comes in, he gets on the bus, he starts a tour. It works in the United States. The tour is going to Canada. I said, don't go into Canada because immigration coming back in will be impossible. Of course, like all bands do, they did not listen to me and they went into Canada. And during the coming back to the United States, he got stopped and sent back to Canada by the U.S. border crossing, which I think is why the whole build a wall is so funny. I'm like, do you know how hard it is to get into this country?
From Canada?
And he was coming out, he gets stopped, he gets sent back to Canada, and he has to sit there while the tour, this is on Warped Tour, just to paint the whole, so you know what kind of tour this is on. So during Warped Tour, Kevin Lyman, who is a saint, says, well, no, we'll keep him on the tour, just get him back into the country because they're paid to be on the whole tour, and I'm still paying an artist to perform that's not performing. So,
promoters and producers do not like that.
No. And then they had alternating other singers sing for him while he was not on the tour.
So you're getting creative.
Yeah, which I think Kevin didn't appreciate. Thinking hindsight. He was just like,
Did he let you know that?
He's like, yeah, every single day.
He's good about expressing his thoughts.
Every single day I got an email. And because Kevin for 23 years has called me Ava because he's still not sure which one it is. The email would say, Ava, where is my singer? And of course, I'm like, I'm going to get white hair because of this. What happened was we had to send him back to London. We had to reprocess everything. And he got stamped that he is flagged from coming back to the United States.
So you're properly fucked.
Permanently.
Right.
Yeah.
So then we had to get the lawyer to come in and say, but he mistakenly misunderstood the work visas.
So he was lying.
Anyways, we got him. Yeah.
Very nice guy.
He was lying. I mean, who would have thought that? We get him back in 2 weeks later. And now every time they come in, we have to go through a completely different border crossing process altogether. And it's really a lot of fun and very expensive. Very, very expensive.
So the key is to always listen to your agent.
Always.
Everybody give it up for Eva for a live war story. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Hey, it's J-Bo Lewis from UTA, and you're on Promoter 101.
Tweets of the week.
Let's get into the tweets, my friend.
Yes, this whole podcast and the name of Promoter 101 started from a series of tweets that Dan started making about 2 years ago, kind of just flaming some certain people in the business with hashtag Promoter 101. And it's so we take a moment on every podcast to read some of the tweets of the week. These are the best ramblings and musings out of Dan's brain in the form of a tweet, which is the second best type of tweet you can find online next to the president these days. So let's go with this.
You can ever have your tweets thrown back at you 5 years later every single week and then aired for the internet to explore what you were thinking back then while you were sitting on the pot writing a tweet.
Some of these don't.
I definitely recommend it.
Some of these don't age well, but this one was okay. Start here. When a local public official demands to meet an artist playing in their market.
It is amazing how nobody gives a fuck who the mayor of Fargo is and they don't want to meet them regardless of how good our rent cap was.
I can't believe that's the case. How about when a venue tells you their capacity has been reduced after you confirm the date?
Yeah, it's awesome because the agents don't much mind when we change the deal after the show's already confirmed and on sale. That never a problem.
Never a problem.
Never a problem.
How about this one? That time you got a revised ad mat a day after the entire tour's breaking ads went up.
Yeah, that just happened once. There's nothing better than breaking a show and then finding out the next day after you've spent 2/3 of your ad budget to break the show that you didn't have the right assets provided.
That's a lovely feeling.
That never happens.
Yeah.
That was like a one-time thing.
Why do you keep looking at me? I feel like we've only done this.
We're changing the passwords again.
Only once or twice on an on sale.
I know
you,
we've told all
like
37 venues on this leg what the passwords are, but we're changing them all.
You know, if the artist decides that they don't want to go from password bacon to password mousse at the end of the day, you've got to make that accommodation for everybody.
No, it's better that they're fries because it matters.
It does really matter. If you want to keep up with Dan on Twitter, he is at the Jew on Twitter, and I'm dead serious about that.
I was an early adopter.
This is Mary Claire Borgelli from Live Nation, Promoter 101, best podcast in the music industry.
Let's get down to it here. So we're in Philadelphia, which has quickly become one of the hottest markets in America for touring in general, for the traffic that's in the market. To have a little state of the union about this marketplace here, I'd like to bring up from Point Entertainment, Mr. Jesse Lundy.
Give it up for Jesse.
Thanks, guys. Glad to be here.
I met Jesse 27 years ago at a Polestar
1998
assistance dinner. And some of the guys from that table have gone on to some amazing things. Matt Thomas, who manages some of the biggest acts in hip hop. Greg Siegel, who books some of the biggest venues in LA. And then me and Jesse, who let down everyone else at the table.
I have pictures. I actually have photos from that night, too, that I can't. They're the only roll of film I can't find. It was pre-digital cameras, kids. We used to have to develop it.
Well, it couldn't have been too dangerous. We couldn't afford anything good yet.
No, it was a disposable camera for sure.
So tell us about the state of the local market, Jesse.
Yes. Well, first, I just want to address what Luke said. You know, and again, being here, I've never thought of Philadelphia as anything except the 5th or 6th largest market in the country. Referencing back to when I did 3 questions with you guys, I still think Philadelphia has got to be one of the top most competitive markets in the city. I mean, I know as much time as I spend fighting clubs over bands that are going to bring 50 people in on a door deal, that I can't even imagine what goes on Geoff's level. So that said, I always like to say that every 2 years there's a musical chairs among the 7 or 8 people in this town that really do the big level business and stuff like that. And you never know who's your best friend and who's going to leave and go somewhere else and take all your acts with them the next day. But it's exciting in Philadelphia, you know, giving credit to Live Nation, hearing so much about how great the Met is and certainly how great the Fillmore is. Those are the 2 shiny new rooms here in town.
And the Met 3,500 cap.
3,500 cap, I believe, yeah, with a stage big enough to do a professional basketball game on, which is, I could use that in a couple of rooms, that's for sure. But anyway, yeah, pretty excited about that. The Fillmore, of course, built in the last 2 years, kind of at the same level as the AEG-controlled Franklin Music Hall.
And that was the Electric Factory historically,
the factory.
Right?
Yep, absolutely, the Franklin Music Hall.
So Larry Maggot got a check in, but they can't call it that anymore.
Yeah, I think that when he sold the business, he sold the name. Yeah, it's my understanding.
It's a little fucked up. I mean, that's some history right there.
We have T-shirts to remember it by, you know? I'm not bad-mouthing anybody.
It's pretty good.
That's what I got.
Yeah.
Some posters, too.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that, Jesse. Yeah. Thank you.
But it's exciting to see that much new stuff happening in this town. I mean, on that level, of course, all of those rooms are going to be not indirect, but they're going to be indirectly competing with some of the established rooms, the Academy of Music, the Merriam, the Kimmel Center. You know, those are the high level, the big level capacity rooms.
It goes beyond that, and competition goes both ways. It's not just at the 3,500 cap and up. You're finding tooth and nail at the 600 and 1,200 cap rooms
Absolutely.
In the market too. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's amazingly solid AAA market too, right? One of the biggest stations in the country.
Yeah, WXPN. We're very lucky to have XPN here. And, you know, again, you have, we work very closely with the Ardmore Music Hall, which is a variable capacity up to 600, which is doing tremendously well. Thank you. Yep. And, you know, Underground Arts, which is now a Bowery-controlled room. You also have Union Transfer at a nice, sweet variable capacity of like 600 to 1,200.
So Bowery was in the market before AEG rolled them up, right?
Yeah, Bowery.
So now they're together. Does that make them a lot more powerful here, or has it changed anything?
Well, I think that being able to add Union Transfer into the AEG-controlled segment of rooms definitely it bridges a really nice gap. It's a desirable room. It's a nice space and people want to go there. It almost feels to me like people will go there to see shows just because it's there, which I won't necessarily say about every room in the city.
Yeah.
You know,
the competition's not just Center City. You've got sprawl from Phoenixville to Burbs and Doylestown and Bucks County. This is like, it's, north, south, east, west, every part in every direction, right? This is
right. Well, my business partner, Rich Carden, and I have always sort of subscribed to Philadelphia proper has enough people beating each other up to maybe just sort of get out of the mix there.
You work with everybody, right?
Pretty much, yeah. No, we don't work with everybody. There's definitely people in town that it just doesn't really work out, and that's okay. It's nothing personal. It's a business, right?
We can send you to counseling.
I'm not naming names. What do you mean? You guys are my best friends. What are you talking about? Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying, though. You'll sit in your chair. This guy might be my best friend one day. The next day, he might go to another company and scoop off the whole top line, all the acts that I developed up to where they got to 2,500 capacity.
Which is funny for people in the room, but the internet can't see who you just pointed to. So that's awesome.
That's the way I like it.
That's John Hampton and Jeff Gordon.
Yeah, it's nothing personal. This is they don't call it the music friend business, right?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that's not what they call it.
Who the fuck is that?
That's before you ask for tickets, right? That's when you ask to get, yeah.
But anyway, yeah, you're right. Absolutely. I mean, Rich and I, have been working at the Colonial Theater in Phoenixville for a long time at about a 650 cap. But just below us in Sellersville, the Sellersville Theater is 320, which is half of our size. It's a completely and utterly different market than anywhere around here. But, they've got their radius clause and they may as well be in Center City as far as that goes, But even moving up from that, the Keswick Theater's exactly double the size of the Colonial. So there's a nice system in the suburbs on that theater level. Not a ton of rock clubs out there. I mean, I don't really consider Ardmore to be the suburbs. It takes 15 minutes to get there.
Is the Keswick a Philly play? Because, I've been out there for a show. I drove out there with Hampton when we did the Trailer Park Boys. And, man, if you had a couple of beers, you couldn't make that drive back safe.
You could take the train.
It's a tough one.
Does a train stay up that late after your show gets over?
I think the Keswick has done a fantastic job of positioning themselves in the market for being who they are, and they've been there for, a long time.
Right, but it's not really a Philly play, right? It's like a suburb.
Well, you know what? It depends. And again, demographics change in the city all the time, too. 10 years ago, I was like, why do you want your parents to have to get in the car and drive downtown to see a show that could just as easily happen a block and a half from where they live in the suburbs? But now a lot of our parents' age people are moving into town because it is walkable.
My parents call for comps. They're not buying tickets. Fuck them.
But you know what I'm saying? Demographically, the city's changed a lot in the last few years. It's totally different. It's totally different. Every 2 years, Philadelphia has to be reevaluated as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Okay, so 2 years we'll come back. You'll do this again for us.
I'm going to, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm pretty sure I'll be booking the Spectrum by then. I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to that.
Everybody give it up for Jesse Lundy with the State of the Nation.
Thank you.
Hello, this is Dan Berkowitz from CID Entertainment and CID Presents, and I am here on Promoter 101.
Seems like enough appetizers. Should we get on with the main course?
I think so. I think this is the time that everybody's been waiting for here. The feature interview of the podcast. Regional President for Philadelphia for Live Nation. Please welcome Mr. Jeff Gordon.
What's up, fellas?
Have a seat. Welcome. I love that you were about to delegate this to John Hampton.
I really enjoyed all of that, actually, very much so. There's a lot to take away from that. That's really cool. And I'm excited about what's going on in Philadelphia. These are all my friends, to be honest with you. That's the way I look at it. Jesse's my friend. And my competition is to make sure people buy tickets. That's my competition. My competition is Netflix. That's my competition.
Get out of the house.
My competition is Hulu. That's my competition. Fortnite. That's my competition. That's my competition. That's what I think about. I get it. We compete as concert promoters, but I compete for eyeballs. It's really what I do. So that's my competition. And that sounds a little bit, I don't know what it sounds like, but that's how I feel.
Well, speaking of competition, Seth Hurwitz in D.C., who owns the 930 Club, says you are the toughest competitor he has ever faced. That's high praise.
It is high praise from Seth, who will call an act at their house and not understand an unconfirmed show. So yes, I give it up to Seth. Seth is the hardest competitor I've ever fought against. And when I went to DC, I made sure I made friends with. I was always friends with Grohl, and we booked the Black Cat, and it was great. And DC is a very interesting market, but I always thought that yes, I would be an aggressive promoter there, and I appreciate it from Seth because When Seth says that I'm a good competitor, that means a lot because he's pretty ruthless, isn't he?
It truly is an understatement.
And in a very complimentary way. So I mean that very complimentary.
So maybe we go back to DC. Maybe we go to the start. You know, you've had a great run, a long career. Let's take us back.
Wait, I'm not dead yet. Wait. Is this my eulogy? It's been a great run. It's a long career.
And here's your gold watch.
Is Rapino here? He's going to hand me like walking papers. Like still employed, right? Okay,
you're still employed.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good.
But let's take us back. Take us back to the start. How did you get your foot in this business, and what was your first gig in music?
Well, originally I was on South Florida working for Jack Boyle, cellar door, and I took a part-time job for $3.20 an hour, which seems like extremely low. But I really wanted to be in the music business. I was a terrible bass player and an average drummer, and I realized I could not make it on the stage, but I'd go to shows. I come from the audience. Actually, that's where my experience as a fan. I come from a fan, and I saw this guy walking around with a briefcase and a couple passes, and I was like, all right, I can't be them on stage, but who's that guy? And I realized he was a promoter, and I was like, okay, how do I do that? I did everything I could to become that guy. So I would take every job, whether it be a runner, which is a production assistant, which means you I need batteries. I need this. I need food from Budokan. Or what? You do whatever you got to do.
You just knew you weren't a talented enough musician to make it in the industry. It had
obviously
to be
not. Yes, obviously not.
It sounded like you knew that early.
I was a big Motorhead fan, so I could play a bunch of Motorhead, but pretty academic at that point. And I'm a big punk rock guy, so I could play a lot of those songs, but I wasn't that good. And obviously, you can tell by my looks, I have a face for radio. But the point is that I realized at one point that I wanted to be in the business because it was so passionate for me. I love music so much that how could I be that guy that I saw walking around kind of like pointing at things with a bunch of passes? And that's what I wanted to do.
It's very cool. So there was early on, you got involved with booking, and there's a comedy club gig.
Yes, I worked at the comic strip in Fort Lauderdale, which Richie Tinkin managed, Eddie Murphy, and a couple other comedic acts. So that's where I started help booking with them. And I also helped book the city limits in Fort Lauderdale. They would get in a bail sheet from the cellar door, and all of a sudden there'd be Social Distortion, the Ramones, and all these acts. This is the end of the era of the hair metal.
So we're talking like 89?
Yes, well, 87, 88. And not that I don't love hair metal, so let's make sure you understand that. I love Rat and Tesla. Yeah,
you never know when Dangerous Toys is going to go back out
on reunion to Dangerous Toys and Cinderella. So I understood the acts that were coming up, or were like the Ramones or punk rock. I'm a punk rock guy that I really dug. And then all of a sudden these acts came up like Soundgarden or Ted or Mudhoney or Pearl Jam. That they were my age, or Alice in Chains. I understood their influences because I'm a huge Black Sabbath fan, I'm a Zeppelin fan. I understand that, nasty, dirty rock and roll stuff. And then all of a sudden I could relate and book them. All of a sudden they're selling out, even though they had no airplay. And I also understood that I'd call my friends that were in college and say, hey, listen, you got to check out Widespread Panic or Blues Traveler or The Samples. So these are a bunch of acts that I booked, and they'd sell out in Florida. And they never used to make the turn and go all the way down to Florida, but we did because we'd actually make offers in 3 different markets in Florida. So that's really where I got my bones. And then I started to book, like Don Muller, who's a huge supporter of mine. I'd booked Nirvana on the Bleach tour at the Masquerade in Atlanta and New Orleans, and John Harrington. I did 311, Corn Capshaw. I did Dave in New Orleans. So they really supported me because I kind of got it. And David Zedek, actually, as I progressed a little bit forward for this conversation, I understood actually the boy bands with NSYNC and stuff like that because I understood the passion of it.
How early were you doing Dave Matthews with Corin? How small clubs was he playing, or what's
under the table and dreaming is basically what it was, and Corin was always one of my good friends and mentors. I'd go down to tracks because I booked the Bayou. I'd go down to tracks and see Dave play down there and Hootie and everybody else. So I kind of got that vibe.
So this is early on when those acts hadn't broken yet.
Yes, that's true. And they used to play a lot of the frat houses on the weekends and played the Bayou and Tracks and Cat's Cradle and the Flood Zone and all those places down there during the week as a ritual of every week, and then they play all the frat parties. So I dug it.
So you turfed out a little bit of Florida, a little bit of the Southeast between Atlanta and New Orleans, and you built a name for yourself there, but you ended up headed off to D.C. Black Cat, D.C. Capitol Ballroom. Take us through the move, back north at that point.
Well, Jack Boyle asked me to go up to D.C., so I went up there because Bill Kitchen there's a couple other guys that went up there, and then we started the Capitol Ballroom, which I did Bowie, I did Ozzy at, I did actually the Foo Fighters at. At the Black Cat, we did one of the first Foo Fighters dates, I think, with Hovercraft, which was Beth, which was, I think, Ed's wife at the time.
Mike Watt and shit, right?
Yeah, with Mike Watt. Yeah, like that's what it was.
Smallest, coolest rooms. And Eddie was playing.
I did Luscious Jackson. I know none of these kids understand.
Beasties days.
Yeah. So I worked lights there. We did everything. So it was a really exciting time for me. And I love DC and I love Ian MacKaye and I love that vibe. So Brian Baker's a friend of mine. It's just a great vibe. I'm a punk rock kid. I'm a heavy metal kid, to be honest with you. And
so you were a fan.
And a hip hop kid too.
It started because you were a fan then.
Yeah, totally. I could speak to anybody about Spoonie G and about Run DMC and all this stuff early on with hip hop when people are like, "Ooh, how the heck do you know that stuff?" I dug the heck out of that stuff. I would listen to all that. So I was really into kind of the off-center stuff. And to me, we're all the same kind of they were my contemporaries actually.
So 2.5 years in DC, fighting with Seth day in and day out. Finally enough of that shit. You get the call to come to Philly.
Well, I left because Neil Jacobson at Polestar said that Bill Rogers was actually doing Tedeschi trucks with them at the Met, and I love Bill. Left with Sid Payne and Bob Koch and New Park, whatever that was, and they're like, "There's an opening here. We're opening this thing called the Electric Factory. Would you like to come up here?" Or I think they maybe opened it for a year. Would you like to come up here because they're leaving? And Neil kind of recruited me.
And Electric Factory has, been sold a bunch of times to SFX, to Clear Channel, then spun into Live Nation. So
Larry's done well.
Yeah, he's done well. But through all that time, through all those spin-offs, yes. Sales, you've been there, right? This has been
He's done well financially, yes.
This is Larry.
But at some point you got tapped to take
and I don't mean that
derogatorily.
Let me make no mistake. When I say somebody's done well financially, that's part of it. I'm a passion play guy, so to be honest with you, money's great. Of course it is. I have 6 kids. I need money. But I'm not, as Jerry Maguire would say, I'm not a paycheck player. I come from the audience, man. I really dig what I do. I throw the biggest parties, whether it be Made in America or whatever it is. I throw big parties, and I love when people smile. The money comes after that. If you play for the money, man, like Jerry Maguire, you're a paycheck player. I'm not a paycheck player.
Man, I can appreciate that. So Larry leaves, and you get to step into that seat here as the president of the company. How'd that come about?
Well, I'm the guy with the broom. They said, "Hey, man, now you're the president," I guess is what happened pretty much. And, there's an incumbent, and Larry Maggot, I all due respect, and I owe him a lot of respect. He was an incumbent. He started the business with a lot of promoters before, when I was a fan. Whatever happened between him and Irving and Michael happened. And all of a sudden they're like, "Well, you're probably going to leave, right?" I'm like, "No." They're like, "Okay, now you're the president." I'm like, "Okay, cool."
So you're president of Live Nation Philly, just by falling into it.
I'd like to make sure it was a little more sexier than that, but that's pretty much what happened. They're like, "Whoa, wait a minute! Everybody else is gone. You're still here. You're the guy."
So all of a sudden, you're vaulted into this position where you're overseeing pretty much all of Pennsylvania except Pittsburgh, right, and AC as well too for Live Nation. It's a big job. A lot of shows.
650 shows a year. 650 shows a year. Every year that we do 650 shows a year.
Wow.
Which is probably, I believe, the busiest business unit, I think, in the organization. And I have the small sliver too. I only have this much of a state and this much of a South Jersey. So a lot of other my contemporaries, my colleagues have states. I just have this. So I make as much as I can with this. And that's why we create the Met. And that's why we did Made in America. And that's why we're doing everything we can in AC with the AC Beach shows. And the great stuff we're doing with the Borgata and the Hard Rock. It's just exciting time.
Let's go back for a second. In your entire career, you've had 2 jobs. Cellar door which moved you around to DC and a couple other places. Then you came here, and the company had been sold a couple times and merged and spun off. But you've been with the company for 11, 12 years now that Live Nation's been away from Clear Channel, and before that you were there. When it was Electric Factory, you were there. You have been able to, through different administrations, different presidents, different overheads of both companies or whatever, you've only had 2 jobs in your entire career.
In essence, I've had 1 job. Because if you look at it, Rick Franks, Wilson Howard, Ted Mencken, people that were my colleagues at Cellar Door are still doing the same thing. Gary Meyer. I mean, there's a bunch of great guys that are still doing what we do. So, yes.
Because Cellar Door eventually got rolled up too. You would have wound up in the same place.
Not to like be totally like critical. Yes, I've had 2 jobs. Yes.
But essentially, if you had not left Cellar Door, you'd still would have wound up at Live Nation through the roll-ups.
Yeah, I'm loyal, as it turns out. Dumbass.
So 650 shows, you're seeing a staff of 32 people. Amongst all that is opening some amazing venues for Live Nation, and I'd be remiss because we're on Broad Street if we didn't talk about the reopening and the renovation of the Met just up the street from here, the beautiful 3,500 cap room that just opened up in December of last year and seems to have one of the hottest schedules in the city at this point. So take us through May 2018. Last year, you announced the reopening of this thing, and today you've announced that boxing is going to be returning to the Met. So it's got to be a cool thing for you to see this thing from renovation to opening at this point.
It's the most exciting thing I've ever done, actually. Fillmore, we opened up 3 years ago. It was super exciting, too. I mean, if you don't know Philadelphia, we used to be called Philadelphia, by the way. Nobody would come downtown. Everybody would like to go out to the suburbs. Now, all of a sudden, everybody wants to come into the city because we're hot. We're super hot. We're playing a hot hand right now. So we played into it very much so and opened the Fillmore and opened the Met. So it's a very exciting time. It's painstaking when you sit there and take a venue that hasn't had any event really except for church. And thank you, Reverend Hatcher, for 42 years. It was supposed to see the Wrecking Ball a couple of times. And if you see 12 Monkeys, the movie, that's the venue that you see Bruce Willis getting into a fight with. I mean, it was a ruin. So 4 years ago when I saw that, I had to see through that. But 6 years ago when I saw the bomb factory, Acme Bomb Factory, that is now the Fillmore, I had to see through that. So with that comes a lot of challenges, but I always believed in Philadelphia, and I'm super psyched that I'm able to be part of it. And now all of a sudden I look like a genius, but the fact of the matter is I could have got crushed if it didn't work out. So it worked out pretty good so far.
Go back to the nobody wanted to come downtown. So when did the revitalization of people coming back into the city happen? How obviously it wasn't overnight. How long was that transition and when did it start?
Well, I credit Steven Starr, who used to be a promoter as well.
The restaurateur?
Yeah. But he used to be a promoter too. I don't know if you know that. He did Madonna, he did Wham. This is prior to me. Otherwise, he would never have gotten those shows. But shout out to Steven Starr. Love him. Make sure I can get a reservation when I need to at Budokan. But so he became a restaurateur. So he did the Continental, and all of a sudden it became a thing. All of a sudden the city became hot because it's always like, how do we get out of Philadelphia? And all of a sudden now, Philadelphia is probably the easiest manageable city ever. There's no boroughs, there's no sections, there's little North Broad, whatever it is, but it's really easy to get around. Really is easy to get around. All of a sudden, I have 6 kids. So my oldest lives in Fishtown, which Fishtown 10 years ago or 12 years ago, nobody would go to Fishtown or K&A. But now all of a sudden it's a hip place. So everything becomes our own Brooklyn. I hate to say that, but it's kind of that vibe. Like Philly's so hot. It's the best city ever. And I mean that sincerely. We have the best musicians ever. And I'm so excited that every couple of years I challenge myself to make sure that I open something new, to make sure that I give a different experience to everybody. And I have. Actually, I have. So I'm very appreciative that the city embraces it, and somehow I have dumb luck.
Can we talk about you becoming a boxing promoter? Like, you're bringing boxing back to the Met.
Boxing back to Broad. So the Blue Horizon, for anybody who is tenured here, pick it up for the Blue Horizon. was a smoker's like place where you saw nasty boxing on Broad Street.
The way it's supposed to be.
The way it's supposed to be. And apparently we also were fashioned after a character called Rocky, so I'm understanding. So boxing's really big here. So my intention was always when we did the Met was that we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars literally to make sure that the floor was flat so we could do a boxing ring on the floor.
Oh, it's not going to be on the stage. It's going to be on the floor.
No, it's on the floor. So a lot of like, they're like, oh, we can just put it on the stage. Well, that seems like a performance. Like, I want to see the footwork. I want to make sure you feel the round. You want to be in it. And that's what the Met's going to be. So February 23rd, we're going to have our first boxing match with a bunch of undefeated kids. It's going to be hot. We're going to do it absolutely every other month or whatever makes sense. And I'm excited because boxing is such an integral part of Philadelphia and woven into the fabric. Joe Frazier, Michael Grant, Danny Garcia, the list goes on and on and on of the great boxers that are from here. And obviously made a fictional character that we run up the stairs with or whatever the case is. But the point is, that's what it is. Philadelphia has grit. We're ready to fight if we need to.
Fucking love it. I can't help but notice that you're wearing a Live Nation jacket and a Watch the Throne European tour leg there too, which is probably a good segue to talk about your very now long-standing relationship with Kanye West and Jay-Z and the Made in America Festival. So how did Kanye and Jay-Z first come into your life?
So when I started doing touring, a guy named Faisal Durrani used to do both of those clients that we had, left to go work with Beyonce and the management company there. And Michael said, okay, great. You know, G. Roberson, you're going to do Kanye. Great. You know, Sean G., you're going to do Kanye. Great. So I started to build a Kanye tour. And then I also knew John Maneely and Desiree Perez. And Desiree Perez is one of the smartest people in the business. So
Desiree had Rock Nation, right?
Yeah, it's Rock Nation.
Yeah.
So prior to what was Rock Nation. So, and I've known Jay since Reasonable Doubt. I've known Jay for a long time. So we started to put together this tour. I was like, wait a minute. Maybe it's Two Titans. Now they had this record, and I listened to the record. Like, why don't we tour on this? And this is during the basketball lockout. So we started adding dates. Next thing you know, it's so hot. We just keep adding dates. And I will contest to anybody, although I'm sure I'll get a bunch of hassle on this. And thank you, Travi. Astroworld is awesome. Drake, my goodness, what amazing production. But early on, Watch the Throne was the best production of any hip-hop tour that ever played. And it was one of the best shows I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm so blessed that I was allowed to do with Omar and everybody else that was involved. It was the best tour, and we were selling the heck out of tickets.
Now, there should be talked about, because now hip-hop tours roll out like rock tours constantly, 10 semis, big shows, roll in, roll out, like any other Metallica show or Coldplay on the road. It's not a big deal, but it wasn't that way 15 and 20 years ago. I mean, besides Diddy doing it every once in a while with the family, and besides Bill Selva taking Up and Smokes out with Dre and Snoop, nobody had really figured out how to keep these guys on the road correctly. It would usually just be fly-ins. And you'd have to build a radio show. So
it was
touring hip-hop.
It was usually banquet tables and a skirt and two turntables, and people like wave your hands in the air. And all of a sudden, now we're producing an amazing show. And I look down 2012, it makes me feel old, but Watch the Throne, I think, was the pinnacle of taking it from that into actually a production level that was amazing. And through that production rehearsals that we did in Birmingham, which were painstaking at times, it was a very special show. And let me tell you, you had two guys at the top of the game. You got Kanye and you got Jay-Z, and they all did the hits, and they did Watch the Throne, which to me, Watch the Throne is one of the best records ever made, in my opinion. It's a hip-hop, I mean, it's so good. It's so good. It's like Derek and the Dominoes for rock and roll to me. It's like, it's such a good record. It really played well, and they got to do Watch the Throne, and then every one of their obviously amazing hits, and it became a thing that didn't even do encores, but decided to do Paris about 1 time, 2 times, 5 times, 10 times, 11 times. I think when we got to Paris, the birthday, after like 9 or 10 times doing Paris was actually the encore. And I remember talking to Jay afterwards, like, how many times do you think Kanye's going to want to do this for? I'm like, I don't know, but I think when we get to Paris, it's going to be a lot of time. It became a contest for the cities. How many times can we get them to do Paris? And I don't know if anybody knows this because that was the encore.
Yeah.
They would keep on playing Paris until Kanye finally decided maybe 5 or 6 times was enough. But it became a thing because the city was like, hey, if we only get it for 2 or 3 times, obviously we're not that hype. Like, we got to make sure we get it 5 times, 6 times. And I watched this, and it was organically cool, and it was the most awesome thing I've ever done.
You've booked the East Coast for years, not just this market, but several, and you grew up booking all around the country. But routing a tour and promoting all over the country, let alone all over the world, that's a whole different set of skills. What kind of stepping up did that have to do for you? That seemed like a lot of extra work.
Well, prior to that, Michael was like, hey, listen, we're going to do this with
Rapino?
Rapino. One of Jay's very good friends, one of the best business partners we could ever have, was like, listen, we're going to do Watchathon. Cool. Omar, who is basically one of the big guys in touring right now, was a junior guy at the time. I was like, he's good. Let's go. He's my partner. Let's go. So as we did this, somewhere when we went to go on sale, and there's a lot of other things that went around with it, I turned to Arthur Fogel, and people that don't know Arthur Fogel, but Arthur Fogel is Arthur Fogel. So,
if you don't know him, there's a movie called Who the Fuck is Arthur Fogel on Amazon. It's fucking awesome.
It's great.
So Arthur Fogel does U2, Madonna, Bruno. I mean, I said to Arthur, I said, listen, I've just been a local promoter. Can you give me any insight of what happens when I be a national and world global tour promoter? He goes, just keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, boss.
I was like, okay. And as it turns out, he was right. Just hit the ball, man. You know what I mean? It's the same ball you hit when you're in Little League. It's the same ball when you hit in the big leagues. It's the same baseball. It's the same football. It's the same soccer ball. It's the same puck. As long as you know that you have confidence, that you have that muscle memory, and that you've done the right training and stuff like that, there's no difference. You just have to make sure that you have the confidence. It's not even cockiness. It's confidence to understand it's the same thing. When you bring that integrity into anything, that really is what matters.
We talk about year 7. How did Made in America come to be, and now you're in year 7?
That came out of the relationship with Desiree Perez and Rock Nation and Jay. They had gotten approached by Steve Stout and Budweiser. Let's do a festival. Of course, greedily, I said, let's do it in Philadelphia. And, of course, Jay was like, I'm from Marcy Project. I'm like, yes, Jay, I know you're from Marcy Project, of course. But I'm like, Philadelphia, made America, birthplace of America. So I was like, okay, here we go. What a great place to do it. The Rocky Steps, that's kind of like your story. Like, this plays into it. This is great. So I went to Mayor Nutter at the time, and within 2 months, we're on sale with the festival. Crazy as it seems. We've been producing on the Parkway, 4th of July for many years. So I understood that. I thought that was a great place to do. I always wanted to think how we could close it off, because I think the Parkway in Philadelphia, to me, is the heartbeat of the city, the epicenter.
Let's talk about that space. I mean, talk about what you're looking at and what the stage on the Parkway looked like and Made in America.
Well, when we did Live 8 there, and we also did Elton John for 4th of July.
And the Pope, right?
Yeah, and the Pope. Yes, we did the Pope. It's just...
So that's what you think about when touring. This space has handled the Pope and Elton John. It's good.
Yes, we produce the Pope, too.
That's what Jay-Z wants to hear. Can the Pope play here? All right, I'm in.
Well, it's funny. So we did the Pope. We produced the Pope with Scott Merck and ECM in the city. And Jim Gaffigan was there, which was weird. So Jim goes, and I'll do my best, Jim Gaffigan. He's like, Gordon, what are you doing here? Of course, it's Philadelphia. You produce everything here. And that was Gaffigan. I'm like, why are you here? So
you
anyway,
do a good Gaffigan.
Long story short, with Made in America, so we said, let's go. Let's do this. It was a fast track with the opportunity that Budweiser gave us with the support of the sponsorship. Jay doing a legacy item, which is Made in America. And, Jay's the best and can speak to artists better than I can. And we just did it. And at the last minute, I pulled in my friend's Pearl Jam to be on the second date as kind of like, hey, this will absolutely fortify the fact that we're going to have a lot of people here. We got Jay in one day. We got Pearl Jam. So probably is the biggest festival that's ever happened that at the first year lost no money, which is incredible. And to hear the horror stories of millions of dollars the first festival, but I'm such a cheap bastard that I didn't want to lose any money, so I just called anybody in that we could make some money with.
But you had to be surprised about that. You had to be planning on taking a loss that first year.
Yes, I was, but I also understood that, yes, I'm not going to lie, yes. Paul Tillett and God bless Rick, that lost millions of dollars. Most do. But I think we lost $112,000 the first year.
That's insane.
It's insane. It's insane. When I tell a lot of people, they're like, how'd you do that? I said, because I hate losing money. That's how I did it. But I
imagine the rest of those festival promoters weren't enjoying losing money.
Yeah, but you know what's the greatest thing was, so after Pearl Jam plays, and they played 99 Problems with Jay, Pearl Jam's really close to my heart for many different reasons. And afterwards, I was talking to Ed, and like, so what are we going to do? He's like, because Bruce was playing on Monday at the baseball park. He said, let's go see Bruce Monday. And I'm like, oh gosh, I'm so freaking tired, man. Okay. But like, absolutely. And he's like, you know what, Geoff? This is one of the best things I've ever done. We played in front of so many diverse fans that this is really rewarding. So with that became the closing of the Spectrum for 4 nights. Also became, ironically, when they played the last time here, the band was like, listen, Bruce has got these banners and Elton's got these banners. I said, no, I'm going to get you a banner, of course, because I never say no.
Like the sold out thing.
And all of a sudden, I'm going, and I called Don Muller, and I called him. I'm like, it's only 10. I'm like, there's more area plays, but it's only 10. And they're like, perfect, get the banner done. So they hang the banner, and as they're going on, Ed's like, thanks for helping me write the set list. So what do? They play 10 in its entirety, which is a big record for Pearl Jam for the kids who don't know who Pearl Jam is. but so they play the entire record. So to me, those are special moments to me, obviously. And I remember also Drake opened up for Pearl Jam on Made in America. And Drake, before he was totally Drake, was like, guys, stick around for the Pearl Jam. So I had 2 young African-American girls come to me, like, sir, which makes me feel really good, which means I'm old because I have a pass on. Like, sir, should we stay around and watch the Pearl Jam? I said, girls, we're not charging you anymore if you do. Why not? Well, Drake says we should. I said, well, then listen to Drake. And as it started to sprinkle and rain, I watched those girls probably 20 feet back from the stage rocking out.
That's 2012. We're going to fast forward into the 7th year, into last summer. You've been running Made in America at the Parkway, right at the steps where Rocky ran up here. And now you have to have a conversation with the mayor, Mayor Kenny wants to move that venue site. So talk us through, or we'll give you a chance to talk about whatever you'd like to about that particular situation and what that means for Made in America.
I'm super excited we're still on the Parkway. I'm not dodging. I'm just dodging at this point. All right. Listen, Mayor Jim Kinney's a great guy, and there's always pressures from different situations, and I was just very pragmatic. And as it turns out, it's the heartbeat of the city, and I'm very blessed that we're doing the festival there. And I'm not being contrite about it because I love this city more than anything else. And there's different opinions of what art is. And that's, if you read my comments is like, listen, I love the art museum. I love the Rodin Museum. But for these kids, this is art. We present art. So don't discount that, even though you don't understand what Uzi means or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's all art. It's all art. Don't question art. You might look at a Warhol and go, what's that, man? But you know what? It's art. So I appreciate art. I don't have to understand water lilies, but I like to look at it and say it's art. So that's what I'm going with.
That's a good answer.
And art on the Parkway works. And we're back and we're there. Thank you, Mayor Jim Kinney.
There you go.
All right,
and Michael Rubin.
I did my research and I was told you've got a great Meeks Mills opening act at Powerhouse story.
Yeah, well, so Meek, this is super ironic too. Early on, Meek, who is always a beast, I love him. So early on, Powerhouse, which is I think we're 25 or 27 years into it, which is our WSL hip hop show. We've done everything. Cameron, Beanie Siegel, Busta Rhymes, Uzi, Nav, Juice WRLD, Jay played it for 3 years. It's like one of those things. It's like a rite of passage. It's a thing. So I made sure that I got Meek as an opening act. He was the first on as an opening act because I was like, listen, this is going to be it. He's like, can you sure you can do it? I'm like, yeah. Which I just did with another kid named Zayosa, who's a great rapper too. So my point is this, that vehicle has been such a great vehicle for Philadelphia to actually highlight acts like that, like Uzi's been on as well. And the ironic thing is we had an argument backstage about who's better, Lil Wayne or Jay? And this was years ago. Of course, me being the Jay, and I love Wayne, don't get me wrong. But he's like, Wayne means more to me. Yeah, and guess who manages Meek Mill? Rock Nation.
So you meet Dave Grohl in your Celador days in D.C., and lo and behold becomes Dave Grohl, the Foo Fighters, and you've definitely had a chance to work with him professionally here in Philadelphia. You got any good Foo stories for us?
David's one of my favorite people, period. I mean, and most everybody in the industry says the same thing. He's just a like-minded guy for me, because we always understood where we liked the rock and roll. We're both Sabbath and Zeppelin fans, but I was just discussing this earlier a couple of days ago. First time I heard Rammstein was Grohl turned me on to it. and Grohl to me is such a super talented, energetic guy that really exudes why I love to do what I do. And Jay's the same way. These are guys that when they put it all on the field, they really do. When they go out there, they do what they do. There's nothing better to watch pros do what they do. And to me, a guy like Jay-Z or Grohl are the guys that just go, man, they own it. And I respect the hell out of all of them.
Before we open it up for questions, I want to talk about the stadium shows. There seems to be more and more every year. But in particular, Billy Joel has played this market 6 years in a row now. That's incredible. Like, he picks different markets every year, but he plays here every year for you, and he just sells it.
Yeah, well, Billy, to me, again, if you listen to music, is really a part of the fabric with WMMR. You know, Rich will tell you about the stuff at the Point, and Jesse will tell you about the stuff at the Point back in the day. Billy and Bruce are two of the acts that weren't from here, but basically should be or could be because of the support of WMMR. And you know what? Anytime you walk into a shore bar and hear everybody sing Piano Man, you know that it's really clicking. So it's exciting to have the 6th year happening at the stadium, and we'll sell it another one. You know what? As long as he keeps selling tickets and he wants to come, and I love Billy and his crew, we'll keep doing it.
How many stadium shows are you doing a year?
I think he does about 8 to 12, probably.
So that's just greatly increased over the years.
Yeah. I think listen, his songbook is amazing. And I don't remember I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think there was a few years back, he's like, why should I write new music when everybody wants to hear the stuff that I already wrote? And that's true, right? I mean, that's what Billy Joel is. And he's a wonderful, wonderful human being. I'll tell you a story about Billy real quick. So we're ready to take the proverbial or the usual industry pick with Billy, you know? And I said, Billy, there's a kid out there that's struggling with leukemia, and I'd prefer that possibly he take the picture, because not that I wouldn't like to take a picture with you again, but he's like, get him. So I go get him the golf cart, come back. Billy does not only take the picture with him, drives him around the entire time. Now, the good news, that kid overcame leukemia, but he could not be any more smiling for whatever pain he was going through. And that, to me, is the beauty of music and the beauty of Billy Joel. At that moment, he rose him up to that. And he looked at me and said, Geoff, you're a mensch. You did the right thing.
Bring in the Yiddish.
Billy Joel calling you a mensch. I don't know a better way to wrap it up than to say that is an incredible story. And being called a mensch by Billy Joel, I mean, come on.
It's high praise.
It's high praise.
So let's go ahead and open it up for questions. If you have any questions, please say your name and where you go to school or where you work, whatever, so the internet can stalk you.
There has to be some questions out there for. All right. Come on, Jeff Gordon, everybody. We got one here.
Okay, so I'm Sydney Taylor. I'm currently a music business student at the University of the Arts, and I actually work in guest services at the Fillmore.
God bless you.
So as we heard, you've booked so many bands, so many of my favorite bands you talked about. And of course, you started out being in the audience. So you yourself started out being a fan. Is there one?
I still am a fan, by the way.
And yeah, you're
I don't mean that. I mean, I want to clarify that, because the other night went to Casey Musgrave at the Fillmore, and I love her. I don't even know what to say when I was watching this show. I mean, I love when I watch an artist like that. And I think Casey, she likes to be called Spacey Casey, but I love Casey. She's unbelievable. So Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But I still am a fan. You'll see me out there watching shows. So sorry, go ahead.
You know, you've booked so many bands and artists. Is there one band or artist that, you know, you either been a fan of for a very long time or become a fan of that you can't believe that you actually got to work with them, got to book them, got to...
David Bowie.
David Bowie. Me too.
When I got to book David Bowie, to me, David Bowie, no disrespect to anybody else I've talked about, and I don't mean any disrespect, David Bowie is my favorite artist of all time. I think he's truly an artist. He was a musical artist, but he's an artist. He transcends. He was a character. Bowie, you know, we've lost a lot of people, obviously, but when Bowie passed, it really hurt me bad because I think Bowie really encapsulated everything that anybody that's doing music really is. And I had this conversation with Uzi, who I love. And I think Uzi has a lot of Bowie in him too, as a hip-hop artist. But Bowie is my favorite.
We go on the inverse of that. What's the one artist that's eluded you that you haven't gotten to promoted that you'd like to or wish you had?
None.
Oh, you've got them all.
Yeah. Actually, none.
Didn't see that coming.
Well, I mean, I guess I say Jimi Hendrix, but that's so like, yeah. But I've been lucky. I mean, I remember...
You might be unavailable.
I remember getting a knock on the door, knocking on the door. Listen, Steven Tyler wants to say hi because you're the promoter. I'm like, Steven Tyler from Aerosmith. What am I going to say to him? And I was like, God, hey, So, no, and Bowie was such a gentleman. I don't mean to be so obsessive about Bowie, or maybe I do mean. He was such a great artist and such a great guy that I think really, and I always think that Uzi has a lot of Prince and Bowie in him. That's why I think Uzi is a very special rapper, I guess you call him now, but I think he's more an artist. I'm a big fan of Philly artists, so I'm not here to super push Uzi, but I mean, I love him. I think he is that guy. I think he's that guy that's artistic. Just like I thought Manson was. Listen, when I was in Florida, Manson, the Spooky Kids, I used to do them in a 200 capacity venue. And Brian, Maryland, to this day, every time I say him, I say, Gordon. He remembers that, like, I did those dates early on. So to me, Manson was also that kind of art. I like when people just don't sing or rap, when they actually bring a show. When you're a performer, when you entertain. It doesn't matter whether I get it. Doesn't mean I love Shania Twain, but she brings a show. I like people that bring a show. You know what I mean? Cher brings a show. That's what I like.
Anybody else? Up front.
My name is Devontae Cherry. I'm a musician, and I'm the son of a guy who's in the business side of the music industry. He wanted me to tell you hi. He's like your biggest fan. Posters on the wall and everything.
Who's your dad?
His name is Sabir Talib. He was a Freeways road manager, Bean Seagul's road manager. He wanted me to ask, does an artist have to hit a certain plateau before Live Nation considers them for touring and shows and things like that? Like, what's the cap where they come across your desk?
Sell tickets, I guess. Maybe it's probably... No, I mean, I just told you about a kid named Meek Mill that really wasn't worth any tickets, but caught my attention because he was so talented and actually persistent. But you have to have both, at a certain point. I think a lot of people here that are in the promotions business will say, it's great when you're persistent. It's great when you have talent, but it's also great when you put both those together. And that's really what it's all about. We put on acts all the time that are not worth tickets, thinking that, obviously Mount Joy, which is a band from here who I love, they're probably worth tickets. But when asked if we could have an opener on Weezer at the Met, Mount Joy was an obvious choice, and I love them. And Dr. Dog, who slipped the tape into Jim James' pocket with My Morning Jacket, Fathead, I can go down the list of acts that have always been supportive. So the answer is no, I don't think there's an exact equation. It's just the amount of persistence and actually the ability to work.
There's a whole club and theater division at Live Nation that has the ballroom chains, the Fillmores and the House of Blueses and what have you, where they're really dedicated in breaking acts. So maybe there's 3 or 4 up-and-coming acts they try to put together that couldn't headline venues that size yet, but they're out there doing it. There's support scenarios where maybe you get lucky enough to be the first of 3 on a bigger package. Luke actually works with a couple of younger acts that are out there breaking the clubs that, like, very early on, if you see it, you'll even go out there and lose money to develop them as a company. But financially, I think Live Nation is probably one of the better companies at realizing if there's something there, we'll make the investment.
Yeah, and also I think it's also like we had Proper Dark open up for David Byrne. It's a local act here that got suggested by somebody. And to me, if the band sounds good, we'll give it a break and we'll see what's happening. We don't always get those opportunities, but I try to do it the best I can.
Anybody else? In the back.
How you doing? My name is William Schmidt. I'm the front man for an art rock band called Oblivion Her Majesty. I'm here with my manager, Shane. So I do this to like most industry professionals.
Wait, what's hard rock? Tell me what hard rock is.
I'm sorry, art rock.
Art rock.
So it's like a hybrid of like progressive metal, hard rock, and then I like synth pop influences. Not really hip hop, but like I guess to say more pop.
Sounds like
I'm very inspired by Muse.
Okay.
Okay, good. Okay, cool. I love them.
Pink Floyd, like way back, like
we like the Floyd,
progressive side.
Tame Impala. They like Tame Impala at all?
I don't listen to them a lot, but I very much respect their artistry. No.
They have very different beliefs than us.
Heard was like, screw this guy. No, but so I do this to almost anybody I meet who's in the industry because couldn't really think of a question. But if there's even like 3 words that you can say to anybody who's really trying to step into the industry, anything from your previous experience that like comes to mind that you would say to someone like, hey, like either do this, don't do that, get yourself into this. Like, do you have any just general rule of thumb that you wish you knew in the beginning?
It's going to sound stock, but it's lead with integrity. That's it. Lead with integrity. Because the people, the acts that have made an impression for me to try and give a chance, I could always read where they really just didn't think that was owed to them. And there's a bunch of them. The list goes on and on and on. And the ones that I've been lucky enough to help build, especially the Philly acts that I've mentioned, lead with integrity. Always think about like value what the person is doing that you want them to do, and then return that value with your efforts. That's really it. Because you know what? Mahavishnu Orchestra is amazing, but they were never a stadium act. Beyonce is, because Beyonce is an amazing artist. So my point is, just make sure you deliver. If you deliver, partner with a promoter that will deliver for you. That's really it. It sounds kind of stock, but it's true.
The other side of that is we all talk, and you fuck one of us, everyone will know. And it doesn't matter if they're our competitors or not. You fuck Live Nation, AEG will know you fucked us. Everyone will know immediately because everybody talks about whatever somebody did to fuck you over. Like, it travels quick. You fuck 2 people over, it's become history. Everybody knows that you're that guy. So just live up to your word and like make sure that anything you say you can do, don't say you can sell 400 tickets and then turns out you're only worth 50 people. Like, just tell the truth. That way, like, you deliver, they'll book you again. Like, oh, that guy actually did what he said he was going to do. He brought 50 fucking people, but they all showed up.
Yep.
Second row.
I'm Jack. I work as a runner at a bunch of venues in New Jersey. I started out at the Stone Pony. I know you started out as a runner, one of your first jobs. I was kind of curious what that transition was like for you from running to booking, and then what advice you might have for someone trying to make the same transition.
Similar answer. Be persistent, show up. The reason I was a runner or did whatever I needed to do is because I wanted to just be in the business. So you're on the right track. I mean, that's it. I'm 52 years old, so I'm dating myself here. But when anybody would say, hey, listen, I need this, I would say, absolutely. Then I'd go to the phone book. Now, you guys don't have to. You can Google it. But I'd go to the phone book and figure out where I needed to go. Like, he's the best runner. Maybe he should do this. That's really it. I mean, it really is a business of that. And I can tell you, how many, Jared Paul, who was my intern in D.C., who now manages new kids and does Dancing with the Stars and stuff like that. Dave Klein, who's at UTA, Jeremy Koplik, Steve Gaber, Andy Levitt, who's running comedy with Jeff Wills. These are all people that worked with us. Like, these are all people that were our interns or started work with us. So to us, it really is, once you get into the family, we don't have time to search out of it. So just keep going, keep working hard. Before you know it, you'll be running a venue. Before you know it, your production assistant. Before you know, your production manager. Before you know it, it's a career. Because you know what? My job is to make sure I build as many jobs as possible. And I build as many venues as possible. I build as many jobs as possible. And that's my job. I got this. Just come on aboard.
Awesome. Thanks.
How you doing?
Hey, my name's Aram. I'm a music business student over at Drexel University. So as we all know, the music industry is one that is always rapidly changing. And throughout that, the live music industry has always been a bright spot. And so with that in mind, I'm wondering how you personally see the music industry in, say, 20 years, and most specifically the live music industry.
Huge growth opportunity. Otherwise, would not sit there and build venues or invest like I do. There's other people that stop the growth. And somebody said to me a long time ago, when you're green, you grow, and you're ripe, you rot. So I keep being green. I wake up every day trying to figure it out. Otherwise, why would I build the Met? Like, why would I do the Fillmore? I just wait and cherry pick for Camden and everything else. To me, I love the build. That's why if you look at the vertical we have right now, we can go to the Foundry, we go to the TLA, we go to the Fillmore, we go to the Met, and we go to the Arena. That's the vertical that we've built. And then all the other great casino properties and everything else around here. Like, that's aggressive as we want to be because we want options. Then we have the festivals we do because I want to make sure that I provide options for agents and managers and acts that change up and challenge it and put, the Roots Picnic, stuff like that. That's what I want to do. So to answer your question, I'm going to keep building venues as long as acts keep on wanting to play. So that's what I'm going to do.
Let me say this about the live business, which you guys deal in a lot, and I do as well as in management, but it's the most defensible part about that is that you can't replicate that. There's just nothing like a live show.
Thank God, or we'd be fucked.
So there's always going to be that aspect.
It's true because you know what? It's a tribal experience where you go and everybody's like-minded. There was a time that we all freaked out with, oh my God, HD freaking movies are going to have U2 and it's going to be just as good because you can smoke a joint in the movie theater and it'll be like you're at a U2 concert. You're not like you're at a U2 concert because you know what? When you go to a show, it's one of the only places that you can go to. Actually, that's not true. There's sports too. But there's one of the only places that when you go, you don't have to tell everybody why you like the Revivalists because you're there because you all like the Revivalists. And you all smile when you look at each other because you all get it. You all get it. You're all part of that psychographic that goes, God damn right, we're having a party and thank goodness these are our guys. And that's the beauty of live music. There's nothing better than live concert. And I say this to some of my hockey buddies that play for the Flyers or, some of the guys that play for the Eagles. I said, we never lose. We always win in concerts. We always win. Whether we Reeve McIntyre, Jay-Z, it doesn't matter. We all win because we're all there to see the same thing. We get it.
Let me ask you both one question here to that end, because yes, there's something defensible about not replicating live, but what do you think about the price of a live ticket in the past 10 years? And to your point, in 2009, there was a dip in the live business. It's not always going up. It's not always a bright spot. It's been a great bright spot for a long time, but it's not always been that. And since 2009, ticket prices, grosses have been on the rise like crazy, and you guys are doing some of the biggest shows in the world. So how do you feel about the price of music right now?
I'll give that to you, Dan.
Shit. I'll start, and then you can clean it up.
Fuck.
2009, the economy fell apart. So, of course, we're going to see a dip. Sure. But in general, acts are touring like they've never toured before. Traffic is insane. When we check holds, you're 9, 10, 12 deep. And it's that question of who's playing where and what's happening. And are we really going to see 3 bands of the exact same genre play the same market on the same night? Are they really not going to play together? I mean, we have these conversations constantly with the same agent challenging their own holds. It's
I once saw Harry Potter with my 7 and 8-year-old a couple of weeks ago at Broadway. I paid $350 a ticket to go see Harry Potter. So when someone tells me that $150 is too much to see Steely Dan, you're wrong. Because you know what? Nothing against Harry Potter, but I got to tell you, Steely Dan is worth $150 if Harry Potter is worth $250 or $300. So I'm not discounting the fact that the ticket prices are growing, but to be honest with you, we also have $49.50s up here if you don't want that. It's up to you. Like, honestly, there's a price point that I try to make sure, and John will attest to this, John Hampton, who's right over there, one of my colleagues, is that I always try to make sure there's a point of entry that you're allowed to get into the show. It might be 200 tickets at $20, but I want to make sure that's available. It's a function of guarantees and expenses, okay? It is. We'd love to give them all away. That ain't going to happen anymore, okay? We have union deals. We have expenses. Those sound and lights are expensive. Rolling in with what looks like a video with 22 trucks nowadays, every show. It's expensive. So we're trying to produce the best. I mean, God damn, Trevi had a freaking roller coaster, man. Like, that ain't cheap to set up. You know what I mean? So if you want that experience, yes, that's the experience I want. Kanye was floating over people's heads.
Yeah.
Drake had a basketball court. Like, if you want that experience, it's going to cost some dough. But I tell you what, when you walk away, I'll challenge you that you didn't have the best time.
Well, not only that, we're finding that the public is going to pay them that on the secondary anyway for the best seats. So we're trying to keep that money in the artist's pocket instead of just letting it go to somebody that's buying futures and buying the ticket. So that's the fight that we have, is trying not to have the artist lose all of that money that's just going to go into somebody's pocket anyway.
There's nothing worse when you sit there and go, oh my God, I undervalued the ticket. Now, there's a bunch of artists that obviously want to be credible and make sure that they can be, that person. But at the end of the day, all it takes is one scalper to get 20 tickets. Next year, they're for $500. Dylan, our first night at the Met, I didn't even know this, and I'll tell you this story. It's funny, and it gives you that understanding. So our developer partner there, so Dylan tickets we sell out first night of the Met. God bless. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Brian Greenman. Thank you, everybody. Jeff Kramer. We sell them all up. Actually, tickets on the secondaries for $1,500. So what does my developer partner goes? Why didn't you hold 500 of them and sell them for $1,500? He had no idea why I was that stupid. And I said, because my client would fire me, and so would my company, because I'd be scalping tickets. He thought, as a real estate person, oh my God, square foot, are you crazy? And I said, they price it because they feel that's the right price. I try to fight against it with platinum and other aspects where I can sit there and combat that. But at the end of the day, that's not what they want to charge. So I don't know if I said that correctly, but that's what's happening. Yeah. And you know what? Yes, a bunch of people will sit there, and there's shows we don't even go on sale with that all of a sudden on scalpers had, Fish. We just announced Fish. Best tickets for Camden, $600. Like, we haven't even sent the ticket out because they're just throwing the line in the water. You know what I mean? Like, what do they have to lose?
Right. All they do is refund you if they can't.
Yeah, it's a bottom feeder business. So you know what? We're not opportunists. We're long-term play. We're wide view, and that's what I want to do. And I'll make sure that we have absolutely a ticket price for everybody. And I'm very stringent about it, John. I'll tell you that. Very stringent. I make sure I have a point of entry that's cheap enough somewhere. And whether it is, it's just to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to buy a ticket.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for an icon, Mr. Jeff Gordon.
Thank you.
Got you this Emporium hoodie as a gift for being with us today.
Well, let me see that right there. That is sweet. Thank you so much. I really want to thank everybody that came out. I'm humbled by this experience, and I want to let you know that whatever mindset you guys are in, I was always in the same mindset. I came from a fan experience, a musician experience, and I'm really blessed to even be able to do what I do. And I thank you all very much for allowing me to do what I love the most, which is put on concerts. Thank you very much.
Hi, this is Jason Kupperman from Paradigm, and you're listening to Promoter 101.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you to the University of the Arts. Thank you to Eva. Thank you to Jesse Lundy. Everybody that came out tonight, thank you so much. Hope to see you at a show very soon. We've got some great guests coming up on our podcast.
Absolutely. And wishing you sold out shows for the weeks to come.
Cheers.
Check you all.
Mother.
Hey, this is Gino Shelton, and I'm on Promoter 101.
Fly, Eagles, fly on the road to victory. Ba-da-ba-ba.